You know, it's really wild. Most people don't realize the value of what they have until it's completely gone. Not just missing for a moment, not just needing space, but fully, absolutely gone. I'm talking about the kind of gone where there are no more texts, no more calls, no more attempts to fix things. The kind of gone where you are emotionally unavailable, spiritually disconnected, and mentally checked out, that kind of gone. And it's in that silence, in that total withdrawal of your energy, that the haunting begins for them. Because when you finally move forward, when you stop pouring yourself into them, when you stop offering patience, empathy, forgiveness, that's when they feel the real weight of the loss. That's when the echo hits, and it hits hard. Here's the truth. Most people live in the illusion of permanence. They assume you'll always be there. They believe your patience will never run out, that your loyalty is unbreakable, that no matter how poorly they treat you, no matter how many times they disappoint you or dismiss your needs, you'll stay. They lean on your softness. They manipulate your compassion. They assume your silence equals security. But here's the thing, they're wrong. Silence doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes silence means the storm has passed and you're no longer part of it. Think about it. You were the one who kept showing up. You were the one who opened your heart, explained your feelings, tried to connect. You were the one who kept giving them second and third chances they probably didn't even deserve. You fought to hold the relationship together, whatever shape it took. While they dragged their feet, you swallowed your pride, you buried your needs, you bent yourself into shapes you shouldn't have, all to make it work. And they misread that. They thought it was weakness. They mistook kindness for passivity. They assumed they had time. But what they didn't factor in was your awakening. There comes a moment, and it's usually quiet, subtle, almost unremarkable to anyone else, when something inside of you just shifts. You're finished. No screaming, no fireworks, no dramatic finale. Just a calm, solid decision. You're done. That's the beginning of your healing, and the beginning of their haunting. Psychologically, humans overvalue what they can't have. It's called the scarcity effect. When something is always accessible, we tend to devalue it. But once that same thing becomes rare, limited, or unavailable, suddenly its worth skyrockets. That's human nature, and their mistake was believing you'd always be available, always on standby. So when you stopped explaining, when you stopped chasing, when you pulled back your validation, they were forced to face what they took for granted. That's when guilt creeps in. Not because they suddenly grew a conscience, but because your absence is a mirror, and that mirror reflects back to them who they really are: immature, selfish, emotionally avoidant. And when the mirror is gone, the fact is, they're left only with themselves. That's the haunting. It's not just losing you. It's realizing that they were the reason you left. There's a concept called the existential vacuum. It's that deep psychological emptiness people feel when they lack meaning or connection. When you moved on, you created that vacuum in their world. And unless they face themselves and actually do the work, they'll fill it with distractions, shallow connections, rebounds, anything to avoid the reality of what they lost. But it never works, because nothing replaces presence. Nothing replaces the person who showed up, who believed in them, who gave consistently, and that person was you until you weren't. You want to know what truly haunts people. It's not the fights, it's not even the ending. It's the memory of someone who loved them fully and the realization that they failed to love that person back. They can post their stories, they can show off distractions, they can act like they're unbothered, but the quiet moments don't lie. The silence reminds them of what slipped through their hands. That's not just loss. That's spiritual torment. Here's what's powerful. When you move on, not bitter, not angry, just calm and elevated, you force people to sit with the reality of their choices. That's not cruelty. That's growth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for becoming a version of yourself that no longer tolerates being undervalued. Your absence becomes a statement, a loud one. And sometimes your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. Don't let anyone convince you that you were too much, too sensitive, too difficult to love. You were real. You were present. You were invested. They just weren't ready. But now they're haunted by that. Haunted by what they lost when you finally stepped away. And that is your power. Healing is not loud. It's not fireworks or dramatic declarations. Real healing happens in the still moments. When you stop asking why they did what they did and start putting that energy back into yourself. And the moment you do that, the balance of power shifts. They may not notice it instantly, but in time they feel it. Because while you're rising, they're shrinking. While you're healing, they're regretting. Let's talk about betrayal. When someone betrays you, Whether through neglect, disconnection, or outright cruelty, the deepest pain doesn't come from the act itself. It comes from the aftermath, the questions, the doubts, the self-blame. You wonder, was I not enough? Did I mess this up? What did I do wrong? You replay conversations, study every detail, searching for how someone you gave so much to could treat you as disposable. That's where the wound deepens, when you confuse their dysfunction for your failure. But the truth is their behavior never had anything to do with your worth. It was always about their immaturity, their wounds, their inability to recognize something real. Healing starts when you stop asking why they hurt you and start asking why you tolerated it for so long. That shift is everything. Because when you stop revolving around their validation and start grounding yourself in self-respect, they feel the shift too. At first, they may act indifferent or arrogant. But make no mistake, the moment they see you smiling without them, thriving without them, living without needing them, something stirs inside. That's when regret brews. Not because they become better, but because they're watching the very thing they dismissed come alive in a world they no longer belong to. That realization is crushing. Deep down, they knew what you brought to the table, they just thought you'd never leave it. And when they see you healing, building, rising, they're hit with what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, that mental discomfort when someone's actions don't align with what they know to be true. They treated you one way, but deep down they knew you deserved better. That gap eats at them. It shows up as regret, guilt, misplaced anger, even denial. They may lash out, go silent, or act like they don't care. But inside, they're wrestling with the version of you who doesn't need their approval anymore. And that's what makes your healing so powerful. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about becoming so rooted in yourself that their opinion no longer holds weight. That transformation can't be faked. It's magnetic. It forces people to confront their own failures because it highlights everything they missed while they had you. Let's be clear. Your glow up isn't just about how you look. It's about energy. When you stop people pleasing, when you protect your peace, when you raise your standards, you radiate something different. People feel it. And those who once assumed you'd always be available now feel like outsiders in your life. Not because you pushed them away, but because they no longer qualify for the space you've created. Here's the thing. Suffering only becomes meaningful when it produces awareness. So if they're suffering now, it's not punishment, it's consequence. They're being forced to sit in the silence you once endured, to feel the absence of the love you once gave so freely. The fact is, that's not your burden anymore, that's their reality. So the next time you question your progress, the next time you wonder if walking away was worth it, remember this. While they're haunted by the loss, you're no longer haunted by the pain. You've turned it into power. You've taken the ashes and built something stronger. And that's something no apology, no attempt at reconnection can take from you. Most people never expect your silence to be the loudest sound they'll ever hear. Not the text you didn't send, not the closure conversation that never happened. Just the quiet strength of you moving forward without them. That's the most powerful statement you'll ever make. Because here's the truth. Healing isn't about them finally understanding. It isn't about them realizing what they lost. Healing is about you reclaiming your power, about releasing the need for validation, about no longer waiting for closure from people who were never capable of giving it. The most powerful closure doesn't come from their words. It comes from your growth, from the version of you that no longer explains your worth, that no longer accepts chaos as love, that no longer sacrifices peace for potential. It's not ghosting, it's not punishment, it's preservation, it's detachment in the healthiest sense, not indifference, not bitterness, but freedom from needing someone else to define your value. And once you reach that place, everything changes. They notice, not immediately, but eventually, because they feel the absence of your energy, they feel the loss of your presence. And while you're living, rising, healing, they're left haunted. And that absence, it says more than words ever could. Human beings are wired to notice what's no longer within reach. It's a basic truth of behavior. Scarcity creates value. Suddenly, the person they ignored, the one they assumed would always stay, the one they thought they could treat carelessly is gone. Not just in body, but in mind, in heart, in spirit. You're no longer revolving around their life. You're creating your own universe. And that is what unsettles them the most. Because what they're missing isn't only the version of you who was always available. They're grieving the part of themselves that once had access to your loyalty, your love, your presence. That's the loss. It was never about really seeing you. They barely did. It's about losing what they felt like when they had you in their life. It's the reflection in the mirror they're stuck with now, realizing they destroyed the bond with someone who would have given them everything. Think about this from a deeper angle. Closure is something we're taught to expect from another person. We believe we need their words to move forward. That without their apology or their acknowledgement, we're somehow trapped. But that idea is a trap itself. You could spend a lifetime waiting for someone to finally whisper, "I'm sorry," or "I see it now," and it may never come. The truth is, peace is built inside of you. When you stop needing their validation, when you stop craving their recognition, you take your power back, and when that shift happens, they lose their hold over your story. Suddenly you're calm. You're not checking their page. You're not replaying the last fight in your head. You're not rehearsing what you'd say if you bumped into them. You're here, present, alive, growing. That growth is louder than any speech. And trust me, they notice. Even if they stay silent, even if they pretend to be indifferent, they feel it. Because nothing cuts deeper than the quiet strength of someone who has finally found peace. Here's where people often get it wrong. They assume moving on is about revenge, about proving someone wrong, about making them jealous. It isn't. Moving on is about setting yourself free from a story that no longer serves you. It's about finally realizing that you were never too much, never too demanding, never the problem. They were too distracted, too scared, too shallow, too unwilling. That's not yours to carry anymore. So if you're in that strange in-between place where part of you still craves to be noticed and the other part is learning to let go, let this sink in. Your healing itself is the message. Your absence is the line they cannot cross anymore. Your progress is the only response you'll ever need. Because when you walk forward without apology, you're not just ending a chapter. You're starting a brand new book. And the truth that will haunt them forever is this: you didn't need to argue. You didn't need to beg. You didn't even need to speak. Your evolution said it all. The strange part about losing someone who truly loved them is that the weight of it doesn't crash down right away. It creeps in slowly, painfully, and always too late. By the time they realize what slipped through their fingers, you've already rebuilt. You've already moved ahead. You're not chained to yesterday anymore, but they are, and what torments them has less to do with what you're doing now and everything to do with what they could have had. It's about the life they could have lived, the version of themselves they never stepped into, and the future they destroyed by acting like you were replaceable. That's the wound that cuts deepest. Not just losing you, but having to face you as the person they once ignored who is now thriving without them. You're clearer, healthier, more determined, while they keep playing the same old script, desperate to feel what they once felt. But they can't, because you've already rewritten the story. They never expected that. They thought time would freeze you, that you'd remain stuck in the last version they left behind. But you didn't. You grew. With every step into your new life, they remained fixed, unmoving, lost in guilt or denial, and that's when the haunting becomes real. Psychology has a word for this temporal dissonance. It's the conflict between the past they remember, the present they're living, and the future they lost. When they see someone they once dismissed now flourishing, the conflict inside them deepens. They remember who you were, the person who stayed, who gave, who tried. But they also know that person is gone. That gap between who you were and who you've become is the shadow that keeps them awake at night. Because the truth is, you didn't just leave. You transformed into someone untouchable, and now they're not only grieving the bond, they're grieving the permanent loss of access to the person you used to be. The version of you who would have dropped everything for their call, gone. The version who sacrificed sleep and sanity to fix problems that weren't yours, gone. You've outgrown that chapter. That kind of growth doesn't reverse. They're stuck in memories while you're walking in purpose. You're aligned emotionally, spiritually, even physically. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You know your worth now. You don't tolerate what you once accepted. You don't chase what doesn't choose you. And that terrifies them because your growth highlights everything they refuse to face in themselves. Your clarity shines a light on their confusion. Your peace shows them their chaos. Your consistency mirrors their avoidance. It's not about revenge, it's about reality. And here's where philosophy comes in. The Stoics had a concept, amor fati, the love of fate. It means embracing everything that happens, the beautiful and the brutal, as necessary for your path. Even betrayals, even heartbreak, even abandonment. You stop seeing it as something that broke you and start recognizing it as something that built you. And with that mindset, you no longer crave closure. You no longer need apologies. You just keep walking with steady feet, strong boundaries, and a sense of purpose that cannot be shaken. While you're creating and building, they're chasing quick fixes, distractions, new people, temporary highs, but nothing soothes the wound, because their pain now is not only about losing you,